Hey, good evening. I'm your host, Don Armando, and this is a very special edition of Open Topics with Don Armando. So I just went up and I made this live stream because of a certain comic that actually had a backlash of saying a lot of bad things about the island of Puerto Rico. So my thing is though, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and make a live stream about this. And I want to get the opinions of Puerto Ricans who were born in Puerto Rico, who were born in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Ricans in Chicago, New York, wheresoever. Because the guy, Tony Hinchcliffe, I mean, he has made his career of saying off the wall stuff, whether it be about black people, Asian people, Latino people, and so on. So you have certain people who are actually supporting what this guy actually did, were of the Latino collective. But then you have certain people who are using it as a rallying cry to go against Trump. So I just went up and opened this on platform so anybody could actually voice their opinions of what Tony Hinchcliffe said and if it actually brings a deeper issue. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff that's being said which is off the wall, which should not act, which is not appropriate, and which should not be said. But in hindsight, we have to also take accountability for why these individuals feel free to go and diss the islands. Now, when I'm talking about the islands, I'm not only talking about Puerto Rico, for instance. You have certain people that don't know they might diss Jamaica, they might diss Grenada, they might diss any other island. So my thing is that if people are so worked up with this, I want to know the reason why. I want to also know what is the root problem of people feeling so free to go and disrespect the island of Puerto Rico. And since my parents came from the Dominican Republic, I'm actually in solidarity with my Puerto Rican people. So this is my thing. Since you have certain people that feel that they could go to a platform or a rally to actually say an insensitive joke, what what culture or the culture could make a person feel so free to actually say that? That's what I really want to know. So if anybody feel free to actually come up on screen, my panel is free. So let's talk about it. Good evening, Dolce. How you doing?
Good evening, Don Armando. Thank you for allowing me on your platform. And yes, I got a lot to say regarding this quote unquote comedian. Um,
All right.
First of all, there was a lot of really disgusting stuff that was said, not just regarding Puerto Ricans, but also regarding the Vice President of the United States and also other groups as well. Okay. Now this is something, and I want people to understand this. The election is 1 week away. So basically, this is the time where the candidates should be giving their closing arguments as far as why should they be considered. Okay. And let me make this perfectly clear. Yes, yes, members of the Trump campaign did distance themselves from the comedian, did, state their disapproval regarding the remarks. Nevertheless, they knew about it. Okay. And for anyone to allow anyone to make disgusting remarks regarding a community, and mind you, Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, okay, who have many of them served in this nation's wars. Many of them shed their blood and died defending this country. To actually make such a disgusting remark like that, and what's even more disgusting is that even with everything being said, there are Puerto Ricans, there are Latinos voting for Trump. Okay, basically, it's kind of like you're voting for someone that's disrespecting your own family.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually seeing that's a lot of people's sentiment. So, but then on top of it, you have certain people who are actually saying like, even though that Tony Hinchcliffe went up and said this, I'm still voting for him because he actually dissed everybody. Because quote unquote, he actually disses other people. Now, talking about Tony Hinchcliffe, right?
Hmm.
I've I me personally, I don't really think that he's funny, but the show that he actually has, which is Kill Tony, right? Where he has a whole bunch of comedians, actually they're roasting him and they're roasting each other back and forth. And you had the likes of Joe Rogan on there, another comedian. You even had black comedians, Latino comedians. So this guy, his whole thing is to actually go and diss people because he actually said that it's a coping mechanism. So therefore, he tours all over the country, right, finding the comedians. But most of the time, when he actually has his jokes, he's actually the butt of the jokes, and 9 times out of 10, they actually most of the comedians actually make gay jokes about him. So I'm just saying that me personally, I just respect what he does as a comedian, but I don't respect what he did as far as the Republican convention. Meaning that okay, for Tony Hinchcliffe, I know that he's a businessman, right? But
Hmm.
I don't really think that he's that funny. But but to be all fair and everything like that, it's not like okay, he's the comedian that's like okay, he's gonna go around and give a white person uh, a pass just because okay you're white or anything like that. He actually has his show Kill Tony to actually see who's the best of the best, and he don't care if you're white, black, or anything like that. And 9 times out of 10, he's the butt of the jokes. I'm gonna be honest.
Hmm.
But as far as the Republican convention, I didn't know that he was gonna be there. I didn't know that he's gonna go and say those things. So it's actually crazy if you actually look at it.
Yeah, but you know something? I'm not surprised. And look, I'm not surprised of the whole thing. And again, we're talking about the final days of the election. you should be putting your best foot forward as far as giving people rationale why to support you. And then you would allow
Right.
not only him but other individuals to say outrageous and misogynistic remarks against different sorts of minorities. I mean, unfortunately, what he did was basically he justified every narrative regarding Donald Trump. Okay, now I stated from the get go he should not run for president because, first of all, this let's put aside his nearly 100 criminal charges. Let's put aside the
Right.
fact that he's been unfaithful with his wives. Let's put
All
aside
right.
that he did a poor job dealing with COVID-19.
Right.
Put aside regarding that he was impeached twice. Let's put aside the
Right.
fact he's multiple bankruptcies. Okay. Let us put
Right.
aside the fact that he dismantled the contingency plan that the Obama administration made to deal with pandemics. The
Right.
fact of the matter is Donald Trump's his cognitive skills are declining rapidly, and he's incompetent to be press commander in chief. That
Mm.
alone, that alone, he should not be given the opportunity to be president.
I agree. I agree with Harim because one thing I've seen, right? One thing that I've seen as far as the elections, right?
Yes.
And we're talking about the Latinos and everything. Not only Donald Trump has brought out more, how should I say, or I think he brought like more star power in Philadelphia alone. This man actually went to a sneaker convention and showed off his ugly sneakers. I was actually going to buy those sneakers, so therefore I could say I got these sneakers first, you Hispanic taps. Number one. Number two, the second time that he actually came to Philadelphia, he actually went and posed the rapper by the name of OT7 Quan.
Mhm.
And I guess he went and ate a cheesesteak or whatever. Now, third, I didn't even know that he was in Philadelphia like this past week. Well, last week. He's going now trying to appeal to the common man that he always wanted to work in the McDonald's. So he was working in the McDonald's in Philadelphia. So I guess he was actually trying to serve you the Big Mac, so therefore he could actually go and get that election. So certain people could actually say that's a good thing. Certain people could actually say that's a desperate ploy. So I don't know what's happening.
Okay. In all fairness, that McDonald's was closed, so it wasn't like they were serving customers. Okay.
Right.
Because I mean, it was long ago. He was here in the Bronx in the Castle Hill section at a barber shop. Okay, my thing is
Yeah.
this. Okay, my thing is
Oh,
this.
oh,
Why
mhm.
spend time in a state that you know you have very little chance of winning? Number one. Number two, the reason why he gets into all this tirade regarding Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, everything else, because he has no plans how to deal with the nation if he becomes president. The only thing he plans to do is to pass tax cuts to the rich and persecute everybody who does not worship him. Okay, which is why
Right.
people should not vote for him. And this crazy part,
Mhm.
considering all this is going down, it is close. It should not be this close, but it gives you an idea how sick this country is. And the fact that considering all the disrespectful remarks that he had made, not just regarding Puerto Ricans, okay, but Mexicans and also the migrants, calling them undocumented, calling them murderers and rapists and what have you. Unlike
All right, but
him, I,
all right,
unlike
all right, but
yeah,
but
go
all
ahead.
due respect, right? And
Yep.
while he's going around calling people undocumented and everything like that, let's just go around and delve into his history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not him personally, but we're going to talk about his ancestor or grandfather, right? So, what
Yep.
was his grandfather? Let's be honest. His grandfather was a rapist. He was a he swindled money. Oh yeah, I forgot. He was a you would actually consider him a migrant because he actually entered this country illegally, got kicked out, and still came back.
And think of his third wife, Melania, came from Europe.
Yeah, but
I mean,
and then on top of it, if you actually look at Melania's father, right,
mhm,
and you actually look at Trump, uh, they actually look like that they could be the same people. Meaning, I'm not saying like the same socioethnic background, but I'm saying like the same build and everything like that. So a lot of people don't know, and and a lot and certain people could agree with me with this. A
mhm,
woman, when she looks at a man, she might look for a man if he's financially stable, handsome, and everything.
mhm,
But subconsciously, if a woman is actually raised with a good father, she's actually going to go towards a man that actually has something similar to her father subconsciously. You know what
mhm.
I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
It's not like
absolutely.
okay, it's not like a female has daddy issues, but I'm just saying like in turn, a, a woman will actually look for a man that has the same qualities as the same good qualities as her dad. The
Mhm,
same thing with men. The same thing with men too, because men subconsciously, if they have a good mother and they had a good mother that actually showed them foundation of what a woman should be, 9 times out of 10, men subconsciously, if they're actually looking for somebody to love, to appreciate, and everything like that,
mhm.
they're gonna look for a woman subconsciously. When I say subconsciously, a man's not even gonna know it. But subconsciously, a man is gonna go and look for a woman that either has some trait of what their mother had. And I'm not lying about that.
Mhm.
So my thing is that certain people, when you actually look at Trump and everything, we don't know what regarding Melania, we don't know what her father actually had, right? But for
Mhm.
some reason, if you actually look at her father and you actually look at Trump, they could be brothers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to the rally. I mean, there were people that were comparing it to a similar rally that was done by Nazis in the 1930s. And the fact of the matter is, it was full of xenophobic rhetoric.
Hmm.
Okay, and all of it is to create fear. I mean, for the last 4 years, we've been hearing so much about how how the election was stolen and everything like that. And one thing we have to bear in mind is that the American people have spoken. Okay,
All right.
Joe Biden got more votes than Donald Trump did, and more votes in the electoral college. And
Right.
also, Donald Trump had led several lawsuits, and he failed to produce evidence that the election was rigged. And to this day, he still continues to deny the results of the 2020 election. Okay,
Yeah.
I have someone like that occupying the White House. Okay,
Hmm.
but unfortunately, this gets lost. This gets lost in the whole thing, and it's sad because people are not thinking logically, they're not thinking clearly. If that was the case, many people would not be supporting Donald Trump.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
again,
but
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't. I want to do a. I want to actually talk to more for Floridian Latinos or Latinos that live in Florida, right?
Yeah.
For some reason, I've had friends that actually came from New York. Either they actually had like a democratic mindset or what have you. But then whenever they moved to Florida, they actually have like a pro Republican mindset. So I don't. So what I want to do, and this is Latinos and African Americans. So what I want to do is that what benefit when that they now living in Florida that they didn't have in New York, and I just want to ask why they're going so hard for the Republican Party. Now, this is not anything to be prejudiced or anything like that, but I do know that for a long time, I'm talking about like maybe the 1970s till now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most Cubans will vote for the Republican Party because, in their minds, right, they
Mm-hmm.
saw what being liberal did to their nation of Cuba. So most people who are of Cuban descent will actually vote a hardline Republican because they do not like liberals and they saw what liberalism did to their country
Mm-hmm.
or to their culture. I mean,
Yeah.
so I understand that part, but I want to understand why other people are actually taking the Republican banner. That's why I want to actually do a documentary about one of these days.
You know what? It could be simple things. It could be maybe they don't. Okay, they have issues with the Democrat Party, and let's keep it 100. Both parties have had several issues. Okay, part of it, part of it has to do with with this rainbow coalition, but also part of it has to do with reproductive rights and things of that nature. And they feel that we're going overboard with certain members of society. So I can understand that. Other
I,
it, and part of it could also be because of the climate. I mean, it's more conducive to those who like a warmer climate.
right.
So I mean, there are many reasons, and I'm sure if there are any Puerto Ricans from Florida, they could, or any Latinos from Florida who tend to vote conservative, they can speak for themselves.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if there's any Latinos from Florida, but if they are, I would appreciate. We will appreciate it if you were to chime in the chat or actually hit the link.
Exactly. I'm just actually going to run this show till 10, so all all opinions is welcome here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be doing a stream tomorrow night regarding this whole situation. I'm going to give you my take, and this is the thing, and uh, it's going to sound unpopular, but it is what it is. If it was left up to me, any Latino that votes for Trump, I would revoke their Latino card.
I mean, yeah, but then if you really look at it, I mean, you can, but then you can't. And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Well, the first part is that, okay, voting and then your ethnic being has nothing to do with politics, and I'm going to tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say for example, right? Like here in America, We Latinos, we actually have like a front for TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
To say that we're so united, right? We're gonna go around and say you this is what you're supposed to do when you're Latino and all of this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what but the only thing that actually binds the Latino community is the language of Spanish, right?
Yes.
Same language, different cultures. Number one. Number two, you have certain people that they're gonna vote however they feel, depending on what site that they're raised. If you see Latinos who are born or have lived more affluent lives and they decide to go and vote, I mean, you cannot go around and rip up their card just because they don't identify with other Latinos that are not in the same financial bracket. If you
Mm-hmm.
get what I'm trying to say.
I get. You see, see, I understand it, but this is the way I see it. When you're going to vote against your own interests,
Self interest.
okay, your own principles, and the fact of the matter is, when someone disrespects your country,
Right.
disrespects your culture,
Hmm.
and you're going to give that person your vote, that does not speak well. Okay, it's kind of okay, and I'm going to use this analogy. Let's say I'm Dominican, okay,
Right.
and let's say there's a candidate that speaks ill of Dominicans and comes up
Right.
with every negative narrative regarding Dominicans, which we have heard, which I'm not going to say because we all heard them. And
Yes.
with all of that, I vote for the person anyway. And okay, so basically, I'm voting for someone that's being disrespectful to me, disrespectful to my culture. Okay, and one of the things that Latinos need to understand that considering all the rhetoric that Donald Trump has said against Puerto Rico alone, if you
Exactly.
if you're Puerto Rican and you still with all that still vote for Donald Trump, I mean, I don't know what can be said.
Mm. I mean, and then when I was saying, as far as the third part, right?
Hmm.
Not all Latinos are raised the same, and I'm going to tell you why I say this.
Hmm.
For example, I cannot go around and get mad at a Latino that never been raised in the hood. Number one. So if you have a Latino who was raised who was raised in an affluent neighborhood, right?
Hmm.
Mom and pops worked hard for whatsoever, and they believe on the American mantra of the American dream, right? They don't know uh what a bum looks like or a narcotic addict look like. They never been in an area where it's like where people will have to actually unalive each other and everything. So when you actually have Latinos that actually grew up in those environments because that's what their parents actually came into this country with, or came into this country just because of a family member, et cetera, versus an affluent Latino that don't know those struggles, that's where we actually see the ideologies within the Latino collective bump heads. And that's where you see certain people, you know, they'll bump heads, they'll do certain things when they cannot actually have a civil argument because they're so strongly held to their beliefs. They do not want to see what a different standpoint is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is something that we had to deal with it because at times we who are part of the Puerto Rican diaspora
Right.
disagree with our island counterparts. I mean, part of it
Hmm.
is because we don't have the experiences that they have. Okay. But those of us that have like a reasonable amount of intelligence, a reasonable amount of maturity, what we can do is we can speak with our island counterparts and we can share our experiences because even though my experience as part of the Puerto Rican diaspora differs to a Puerto Rican that was born and raised on the island, there are things that does unite us. One of them, it's language. One of them is two is culture, and also there's a strong Catholic influence. That's not just in Puerto Rico, but many of these Latin American countries. Okay,
Right.
but the thing is this: if we are a family, okay, we cannot stand idly by and let people show this respect. I mean, we can confront it, but in a mature manner. Okay, it's just that the issue is when you're whether it be a Latino from the Caribbean or a Latino from Central America or a Latino from South America. Okay, and there's someone that's constantly denigrating your culture, your beliefs. Okay, not just once, but multiple times, and yet you're going to give your vote to that person, even though they show disrespect. I mean, we all know that Donald Trump speaks with no filter. We all know that. That might be part, and that's probably the reason why he's been so successful. Okay, but the whole,
Right.
but the whole point, and again, we this was his closing argument of why people should vote for him in an election that's this close, in an election where Latinos do play a role. Uh, who's going to occupy 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? The fact
Right.
that Donald Trump exercised such extremely poor judgment to allow an unknown comedian to utter those remarks, okay, that does not speak well regarding the individual,
Mm. Right.
okay? And
I
you know,
mean,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
if you actually look at it, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, now for the past day and stuff, I've been looking at Instagram, and everybody, Dominicans included, were actually in solidarity for the Puerto Ricans who are actually against whatsoever. All right. All right. Before I introduce this person, we're gonna introduce him. The guy that wants to go to Orchard Beach. The guy that loves the winter, and also the guy that loves a fat hairy woman. Let's give it up for introvert Boricua.
And don't forget the guy that wants to make love to a 600-pound woman who
Yeah.
had drugs real quick.
Oh, that was funny. Yeah.
No, 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 I'm not trying to do that. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't even know. all that.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, just coming on because of the of the subject, I had a little
All right.
Hmm.
Mm.
what's going on. They knew exactly what they were doing. That was perfectly intentional. That whole thing about wanting
Yo, Ramon, you're going in and out. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's me. Yeah.
the so-called comedian was reading that sorry excuse for a joke. He was
Mm. Well, I guess it's
that
technical
was
difficulties.
a light Klan rally, and they
Yeah.
going out of their way to offend anybody and everybody and call it a night of love.
Yeah. Mm. Okay.
Expected.
Uh,
It was just a matter of time. They were disrespecting just about everyone else. It was just a matter of time. They left they left the best for last, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was only a matter of time. It was gonna happen, um, and they meant every word. Now they are playing dumb. They're playing stupid, talking about that they're distancing away from it. No, they're not. They meant what they saying. The Trompito used that so-called comedian um to say what he is thinking about, what he means, how he feels about us, which we didn't ask. We didn't ask how he feels about us because we know he already showed us. Dude
Right.
already showed us with his actions all those years ago, back in 2017, how badly he mismanaged the natural disaster and how much the island was neglected. All he could do was go down there, get his picture taken, and complain. Whine and complain about the fact that people on the island were going to be needing some help and resources were going to have to be allocated for that. And he just didn't want to do that. So aid was held back. Billions of dollars in aid were held back intentionally. So
All
yeah,
right.
what to make the
I,
country.
I
Mhm.
I have a question to ask you, and it's a question that I've been wanting to ask you for like maybe in the crux of I'll just say 2 months. I wish Denise was here, but I gave her the invite and everything like that, so you're the next best person. All
Okay.
right. So as a Puerto Rican,
Uh-huh.
how do you feel about Anuel? I forgot what the other guy's name is because I never really listened to
I
his
think you're
music.
talking about. I think you're talking about Anuela and Nicky Jam when they went to the podium.
Oh no, not no. It was like it was no, because it was two separate things. Because when Anuel came, it was with another guy that I forgot his name.
Mhm.
So and then it was Nicky Jam that he actually went by himself, but it was not the same thing. So it was Anuel, and there was another, I guess, reggaeton star that was with Anuel.
Mhm.
So when I was actually listening to them, it was like, oh, Trump did good for the Puerto Rican people. I'm like, oh, okay, okay. So therefore, I'm just asking, and I'm just saying of all the recent stuff that had happened, during the hurricane in Puerto Rico. I think it was around 2017 or 2018. I think it was 2017. Am I right?
2017. Mhm.
So so when you actually look at what Anuel and that other reggaeton star said, and then you look at Nicky Jam, and then when there was that, oh, Trump actually misgendered. Well, we could actually use
Yeah,
that
he
word.
misgendered
He actually he misgendered
Nicky Jam
Nicky
because
Jam. He said,
he thought that he was a woman, which proves that before Nicky Jam coming up to the podium, those two had never met. It proves that
and
they had never met.
I'm, 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 I'm,
Mhm.
I'm like, it just proves that this guy just has like a wazoo of cash to go on and put anybody. The reason why I say that is like, hey, first of all, right? When you had that rally in the Bronx, of all places, Crotona Park, right?
Hmm.
Which I'm just saying, which is considered the hood in the
Right.
Bronx, right? So while you was in the hood in the Bronx, you went up and you had like two rappers who were actually currently fighting charges whatsoever by the name of Chef G and Sleepy Hollow come
Yeah.
to your show to say, yo, Trump is the best. So my thing is he's he's actually trying. That I don't know what his strategy is,
Hmm.
but it's like out of his side, you have seen more and more urban entertainers and rappers or reggaeton singers
Yeah.
on this man in this man's campaign that you would actually see in the Democratic side. So my thing is this:
Hmm.
are they actually do? Are when people are actually mad and they want to go and they want to call a person a traitor and all this, that, and third? But my thing is that do people forget that these people are entertainers, right?
Right.
So if entertainers, believe it or not, they have not like no political affiliations or anything like that,
Hmm.
and they just bring them out so people could be happy. Why the people are actually being mad at the entertainers for getting paid? I mean, think about it. They're like, oh yeah, Trump is good or anything like that. Okay, so what's the incentive for you just showing to the Trump rally and you're not really that famous yet? Think about it. And I'm talking about in the case of Sleepy Hollow and Chef G.
Yeah,
Now,
because
Chef G.
uh-huh. Because
Now,
honestly,
Chef.
I didn't know who they were. The only thing that I knew shortly later was that they got cases for deleting people. But that's what this Trompito dude brings up to the stage, to the podium, because that's who he thinks has to bring up to the podium to buy for the black vote, because he thinks that appealing, bringing up the lowest common denominator, or if you will, kind of like the poorest representation of a community, is the way to buy for the black vote. He's bringing up criminal gang members, sex offenders to the podium, because when he brought up Lawrence Taylor. Understand, this is a registered sex offender. Yes, NFL legend,
Yes.
who he is, but that's who he
Yes.
to to the podium, who recently had to go to court because he went to a different place and didn't register as a sex offender, went to another state or something like that. um
Right.
but that's who he looks for to represent and to help him buy for the black vote. And when it comes to us Hispanics, he brings up Anuela, and he brings up Nicky Jan, who he didn't even know that he was a dude. He thought that Nicky was a
Or
woman,
the
and
female.
about that. Oh, she's hot, thinking that Nicky was a woman.
That joint to me is actually funny, right? I mean, like, hey, Nicky Jam is hot. I'm like, okay, let's put it like this, in the crux of being a married man and everything like that, right?
Right.
I could understand, and if a guy goes, oh yeah, this is a person who's hot, right? But the
Right.
way that this guy's like, yo, this is Nicky Jam, and he's
No,
hot. I'm like,
no, he said she's
she's
hot.
hot.
He,
She's hot,
right.
right?
It was a
So
woman. Mhm.
I'm like, um, not for nothing, Trump, but you sound more cringy
Yeah.
than
It's just that dude didn't met with Jan before bringing him up to, to the stage. Those two didn't meet before. It was strictly transactional. Nikki made an appearance, and he got paid for it. That's why us, and among us, we don't really care because we know what that was about. I mean, that was paid for.
Yeah.
I'll give you an earlier example. Back in 2008, a lot of people don't even remember this because they didn't really make too much of a fuss about it. We understood what that was about. Back in 2008, John McCain actually did something like that. In one of his rallies, he brought up Daddy Yankee. A lot of people don't remember that.
Oh
And
yeah, I remember that.
yeah, yeah.
And then Daddy Yankee was saying, "Oh, I think that John McCain is good for
Uh-huh. I think you can look it
for
up.
for the for the Puerto Rican people." And then you see, and I'm just saying because you saw a lot of people within the Puerto Rican collective, they'll go around, they'll call him Daddy Yankee a traitor and
Oh
this,
yeah,
that, and the third.
Feelings about that, but today we don't even care about that, and we don't hold it against him. We know what that was about. I mean, he got paid a few dollars to get get on stage and say some nice things about it, but at least the difference is that at least you could tell that McCain had met him before and had a conversation before, because he before bringing him on stage, he was like, he's been married for so and so many years, and he has kids, and he's a family man, and this and that. It says a few things about it that show that at least he do some kind of homework, or at least
And
met with the guy before that. So that
and
was different.
and, and,
He got
and
paid.
another thing too about about John McCain, and one thing that I've actually respected about him
Mhm.
is that even though that he was a politician, right? We could actually agree on the memory of the great late John McCain,
Yeah.
is that all besides politics or anything like that, he was a man of integrity.
yes,
He actually went up and corrected one of the supporters, and he said this: "I know Barack Obama. Me and him, we actually have different views. He's a great man, but it's just that we have different views." Now, with that said, that was how politics was in the United States before politicians go around and disrespected each other after the Trump era. So therefore, let's put it like this. My mother always said that, and I never understood this until I got older, that you could have opposing views, but you do not have to go around and offend the other person. So
Mhm.
therefore, you could actually talk about it in a civil manner, and it just shows how mature you are and how level-headed you are, instead of going on the tirade of insulting people, etc., etc. And then on top of it, you will never get your point across because a the person that you're trying to debate or trying to argue, you're not getting respected. Number one, and number two, if you're going to go around and bring personal insults just because you feel like you're going to lose the debate or whatsoever, that actually
Mhm.
shows the level of maturity a person has. And I've seen a lot of people in these YouTube streets and TikTok or whatever platforms that you may have don't really have that type of reasoning when it comes to a debate or the hard line that they're pushing. I'm like, people could push a hard line, but yeah, when they actually push a hard line, they actually are not seeing the facts on what the other side is. They're so busy just with their propaganda and everything like that to make the other side see that they're evil or whatever have you. When the fact is, y'all could actually go on the table and air out your differences in a civil manner. Maybe things in this country will change instead of this partisan and people hating each other just because you're of a political party. Where the fact is, a lot of people don't know that half these quote unquote political parties work with each other.
but
Well, to a
some
degree, they do and they have to, but yeah, it's just that we're living in a time when there is kind of like all this mess, and people don't have the quorum, and they don't act like adults, and it's like being in middle school or something. But Jose, you were gonna be saying something?
yeah, but you see, the problem is that many people had lost the ability, or maybe they never had the ability to actually be agreeable when they disagree. Okay,
Mm.
I mean, one thing about about my platform, it is not an echo chamber. There have been people who have disagree with me regarding many things that I've spoken of. And I said, fine, let's discuss it. Okay. One perfect example 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, where me and Denise actually had debate on my platform, of which her hypothesis was that the pandemic was over, and
Mhm.
mine was it wasn't. So what we both did, we both stated our arguments. It was based on factual data, factual information. In the end, I had to conclude that Denise made a more logical argument than I did, and I publicly admitted that. Unfortunately, not just here on this on these media platforms, but in general, people don't have the art to be able to to discuss and debate maturely. And when you are
Um,
unable to do that, you're going to get emotional. Okay. And
exactly. Stating Harim Ronaldo, one thing I have to say is this: I don't agree with grown men using the women's bathroom either. I mean, like let's be honest, right? And we're just talking about for the welfare of young children, right? For example, if parents haven't explained the bird and the bees to the young children, right? This is where I actually have to put my foot down. Now, I'm not a father or anything like that, but I know people who are parents, and we talk about stuff. What is the public school doing with? And I'm just going to say this because I'm not going to go around and use what the buzzwords is because YouTube is sensitive. So I'm just going to say this. What are you going to do with a female impersonator reading to your children? So therefore, let let let's go in and sit back and let's just analyze this, right? Now, people could be okay. You can have your stuff. You can support whoever you can, right? I have friends who are LGBT, but there's certain things that I don't agree with, and one of them is a female impersonator reading to children. So therefore, if you're going to go and have people who are not non-staff, who the school quote unquote, you're going to bring people who are not even employed with the school to go and read with children. I actually see a problem with that. Where the fact is, you might have staff or anything like that, you can go in and read to the children. I don't want public schools to go around and try to misgender a child or put thoughts in the child that think like, okay, I'm going to be the next Zaya Wade or whatever have you. So therefore, I could see the opposition why some de- people who are formerly Democrats will go to the Republican side because of that moral issue. The other issue, the other issue that I'm seeing, right, is that you see certain people within the Democratic Party that actually treat black and Hispanics or like dirt, where it goes to be like, okay, we'll go in, we have a show, we'll have Megan Thee Stallion and everything like that, or maybe Jennifer Lopez or whatsoever, right? We have them to the show. Not people get riled up and everything like that. You know, y'all vote and everything like that. You like, yeah, I feel good. This candidate is good, but guess what? The next thing you know, you have in the hood. There's a lot of pew pew going on. There's a lot of unaliving of young children, And then on top of this, you have to go and see this too.
Well, I see
Uh,
a lot of hypocrisy, not just in the Republican Party, but also in the Democrat Party. Okay, first of all, the hypocrisy regarding Republicans talking about their pro-family, but yet they were not try to stop funding to make sure that children are given meals in school. Now, as far as the Democrats, I mean, look, they had almost 50 years to codify reproductive rights. They never did it. All of a sudden, the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade and it's gone back to the states to make a determination. And then the Democrats go on with the fake outrage. Okay. So,
uh,
okay, so there's a lot of hypocrisy with both parties. Okay.
I
And
agree.
okay, so really the only solution, you have to have a viable third party option. That's the only way it's going to change. The problem is it's going to take a lot of people to get involved and make it happen. Because if we would wait for the Democrats and Republicans to bring this change, it will never happen. Another sort of hypocrisy, which they talk about how we need to be tolerant of all. They're tolerant, but if you are a Christian or if you have conservative values, as being antiquated or racist.
Right. And then this is one thing that I don't understand, right? You have certain people within the Rainbow Mafia, right? And I'm just using this as respect and everything like that. That they could be so tolerant of people of different faiths and everything like that, but when it comes to Christianity, they are the most intolerant. Case in example, the judge who actually has her show, the Cuba judge, what's her name? Ana Maria Pogo, right? So Ana Maria Pogo, as you know, uh, I guess she came out as lesbian, right? But
Mm-hmm.
before then, before my mother passed away, and I remember in 2013, Fumanito had a show that it showed women that they were dancing, and this is when twerking was just being introduced to Latin America, right? So when twerking was introduced on that program, and it was Fumanito and everything like that, they were talking about that subject. So while they were talking about it and everything like that, for the first time ever on Ana Maria's show, you heard the word booty meat, right? So my mom called it. When my mom actually went and saw that show, and she saw the reaction of Judge Ana Maria Palmer, my mom was like, "No, Mario, that she's a lesbian." I was like, "How?" Just look at her. Just look at her when that woman is shaking her waist and everything like that. I was like, okay. Years later, she came out. So my thing is this: during why she came out and everything like that, it looked like one of her bailiffs had Christian values. So you know what she did after that, and people within that collective is supposed to be so tolerant. She didn't respect his beliefs and terminated his employment. So my thing is that if y'all so tolerant, you want tolerant for your collective and everything like that, you have to be tolerant of other beliefs. Because 9 times out of 10, if there's a belief that do not like what your belief is, either you could respect it, or if not, you could go and stop trying to make a person's life hard just because they don't like your own lifestyle. let's put I'm gonna put it in honesty. Take it for example, African Americans. African Americans have had the brunt of hatred and everything like that for ever since the inception of the United States of America. So now you have certain African Americans who are not with what the Rainbow Mafia is saying. So now you have certain people who are actually trying to use their their dislike or how they want to raise their children against them. So what they do is they have celebrities who are actually a part of that community. They're like, oh, if you don't go on and accept us or anything like that, you're not a real, you're a sellout and everything like that. So they're actually trying to use that argument against certain people who are against that. But certain people, ever since like around 2020, are actually pushing against that. I mean, how do if you actually look at it, right? People who are actually the ones who are actually pro-black, right? You have to actually, I'm going to tell you where that rhetoric actually came from because not a lot of people know. Now, in 2010, yes, it was. Was it? Yeah, it was 2010. The earthquake in Haiti happened, right? So during that earthquake, and a lot of people lost their lives. Yeah, you had Americans that helped, but you know who was most of the people that actually was helping in Haiti? I'll give you a quick answer. Dominicans. So let's say around 2011 and 2012, right? The people who we would consider the Haitian elites, not the people in Haiti themselves. Maybe some, but maybe but maybe some, right? There was something that went on. I cannot really go and say what it is, right? That there was like, oh, Dominicans is this and that. So what the Haitian American community in Canada, in the United States of Canada did was tell all the pro blacks African Americans that Dominicans are so racist and everything like that, that's why these quote unquote woke or hotep guys, they want to go and they want to use what the Haitians say before they actually investigate what a Dominican has to say. So with that propaganda, I remember that you had certain Haitian Americans that were trying to boycott hotels in the Dominican Republic, et cetera, et cetera. And then certain people was like, okay, we're not with it because this is not really the narrative in the Dominican Republic. Yeah, you have certain people who are racist. You have certain people who are not. But nine times out of ten, when you actually look at it, you actually have a lot of what and this is not talked about. You actually have a lot of rich Haitians who are actually living in the Dominican Republic. Now, with that said, that's where that philosophy of the pro blacks thinking that Dominicans are racist and etc. So with that said, Hadi, you have like certain people are being fed propaganda and lies without actually doing the actual investigation. So when you do the actual investigation, you could go around and see the veil of what is actual truth and what is actual lies. So we're not actually going to go on and talk about, okay, the Dominican and African American experience. Okay, yeah, you have certain people that did not get along, but guess what? 9 times out of 10, and I'm going to go and tell you about my neighborhood, Soundview. You have Ricans, you have blacks, and you have Africans and Dominicans. And you know what? We all live peaceful. We actually coexist. You know, Puerto Ricans and Dominicans and Africans will be going to the same barbershop getting the shape up. They'll be going and playing dominoes. Jamaicans and Dominicans. And and you have certain people who are actually going to Dominican Republic and they have no cultural ties to the Dominican Republic. But guess what? They actually love it out there. So with that said, Harim, we have to go around and, deconstruct the hype and actually tell the truth. And we're just saying in all aspects. Now, going back to Puerto Rico, what like as a born Puerto Rican, Ramon, what is it that you've seen like in your lifetime when it comes to Ricans of different backgrounds, meaning the poor background and the affluent background? I'll let you talk.
Okay, but are you talking about when it comes to the island itself?
We're talking about the islands, the politics, and everything. I just want to know all about that.
Well, well. I can only say a little bit when it comes to what I have seen, what I have experienced. A lot of the most people on the island are like more of the working class type. Of course, there is kind of like an upper society, which are the minority. But and when it comes to politics, and when I was growing up, it was usually the same three political parties. They're still around. They're still around on the island, but at least the pro-independence party, which was always the one that barely got any votes, had allied themselves with what is called Victoria Ciudadana, um,
All
and
right.
making a push for kind of like the third party candidate to try to have a different governorship, because the other two parties that have been there is always been between one and the other. One is the pro statehood party, and the other one is the what is called the Democratic Party, but it's basically the one that wants things to stay the same. Um, so politically, that's kind of like our biggest one flaw that we do have, because culturally we're fairly united. We're pretty much on the same page when it comes to culture and heritage and pride for our island and our flag. But when it comes to politics, that's when all goes to shit usually, because we start bickering
Yeah.
with each other and arguing and going back and forth, and that's where things can we can push ourselves back when it comes to the politics. And for a long time, for decades, it was the two main parties, and they all say the same things, cycle after cycle, and the same promises, and nothing happens. And one of them is always talking about trying to bring statehood to Puerto Rico, which is not going to happen because it's something that has to be approved by Congress. Um,
Right.
and the other one was basically trying to keep things the way they are, meaning maintaining the colony. So neither option those seem like really that appealing. So if we could
Mhm.
have some level of sovereignty, I think that things could be different. But full independence is not something that maybe we're not ready for. We have to get the discipline first. We will have to get the discipline in order first to um, come to the understanding that self-governance is not easy, and we will need the discipline to be able to do it as best as possible, so that corruption doesn't run rampant like in other parts of the Caribbean. Uh,
Right.
so that's kind of how I look at it, and I do hope that the third party candidate, because there is it's an election cycle going on right now on the island, and I hope that the third party candidate has a good chance at getting into the governor's residence and leave
All right.
the other two parties outside of it for once.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you were asking also about other island, other places, because with that, when it comes to that, my opinion might be limited. So it's,
Yeah, I'm like my opinion is limited too, but I was not actually asking about that. I was just asking like since tonight we're actually talking about Puerto Rico. So
yes.
I wish that there were more people that actually came. I actually tried to reach out to other parties as well. I hope they're watching, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, I just wanted to get the opinion. So since I have a diaspora Puerto Rican, Don Jose, and I have you, it's all good. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we're seeing when it comes to the island. Um, right now, I do hope when it comes to the upcoming election, because there is going to be an election. I don't know if it's going to be on the same day as the presidential election, but I do hope that the third party candidate has a good chance and they work towards improving the island. I really hope that they take an example from somebody like Nayib Bukele of El Salvador, who seems to be doing a great job cleaning up things,
yeah,
putting things in order. I hope that they take notes from him and to
yeah.
order. Hmm.
I mean, Nayib Bukele, right? He could. It was like when I actually first saw for, I guess maybe when they were talking about him and everything like that, I was actually afraid of that man that he was gonna get unalive because it was something that my father always said, and it actually pertains to all of Latin America.
Hmm.
So I'm just saying for all my Latinos, do not believe the hype. When
Hmm.
you actually see, when you actually see certain people who are actually doing good by their people, you will actually see the first wave, which is American propaganda,
Hmm.
and number two, the mysterious forces. Well, I can't really say it right there because but we all know who they are. Those three letter boys.
Hmm. Hmm.
With those three letter boys and those shadow organizations,
Right.
when they see certain Latin American countries doing good,
Yeah.
you will always hear something of the sort of a person being unalive who was important or who was supposed to be important to that country.
Yeah, but
So
that's something that has been going on since around 1890. I mean, the government, because of its shitty, the government of this country, because of its shitty foreign policy, which is something that I'm very critical of, regardless of the administration. They have been invading and interfering and sticking its nose in somebody else's business in just in Latin America since 1890. Um, and
yeah,
Nicaragua several times, invaded Cuba, invaded Puerto Rico, turned it into a colony, invaded several parts of Latin America. Um,
hmm
it's been doing that for a long time. I think that they have control of Costa Rica. You never hear about Costa Rica. Um, it's kind of like an an expat paradise. So
right.
I mean, because I think it's Costa Rica, the one that is not allowed to have an army. I think it is. So most likely Washington is going to have a certain level of control there. So
Right.
yeah. So yeah, it's been going on. It's been going on, and that's something that one can look it up and go into details as to all of the different places, even in the Dominican Republic. A few places, a few times in IT too. The U.S. have invaded to take something that it doesn't belong to them. So, been
I
going on
mean, yeah, I'm,
sometimes.
yeah. I mean, if you actually look at it, you actually talking about now. I was actually talking to a Haitian. Now I don't know because I'm not Haitian, but
Hmm.
I do know that there's like that he was telling me that there's an island in Haiti that nobody of the local populace can even go into. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, meaning that if you're a local, and you actually go to to the area, you might be on the line just for stepping in that area if you don't work there or anything. I
Hmm.
was like, wow. But then about the guy that calls himself barbecue, right? Now I've I've talking to certain people, and the West they always like to use propaganda when they don't like anybody. But I saw something on TikTok which is very interesting about barbecue.
Hmm.
And he wanted to told the people who like because in Haiti you have certain people who are against the Dominicans.
Hmm.
He went up and he said like Dominicans are not the problems. So why don't you? He was telling the people stop messing with those Dominicans. Dominicans are not the problems. Y'all are the problem. So he was actually going off on a whole tirade on how certain people needed to make their country better again and everything.
Hmm.
So it actually got me thinking. Maybe what is quote unquote the West is actually feeding us garbage propaganda.
Yeah,
So
there is nothing new to that, of course.
yeah, I know.
To you to really look things up and do your own reading, do your own research, come up with your own conclusions, given the information that you can find on your own. I mean, mainstream media. Don't rely on mainstream media. Look for alternative sources of information and come up with your own
Right.
conclusion about things. Yeah,
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I
definitely,
agree.
definitely.
I agree.
Hmm. So, but you do have to you do your own thinking. You are gonna be forced to do your own thinking because there are certain things in mainstream media that are gonna be telling you maybe somewhat of a truth, a half truth, but they won't tell you the whole story, and you have to piece together the rest of it so you can get the big picture. Kind of like a
Yeah.
jigsaw puzzle. Maybe the mainstream media can only give you a certain amount of pieces to the jigsaw puzzle, but if you put together the pieces that you don't get the whole thing, and you have to
Right.
look at the rest of the pieces to the jigsaw puzzle so you can put them together and get the big picture, to get the whole image of it. It's kind of something.
Right.
It's kind of something like that.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily that the mainstream media is telling you uh, a blatant lie. Maybe they're telling you something that has some truth to it, but they're giving it to you kind of twisted, so you don't understand it for what it really is, and then you have to take it upon yourself to look for the rest of the story. Something
Yes.
is more interesting, and then kind of like it hits you, and that's when certain things start to make sense.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, but don't go on believing conspiracy theories if it's not being backed up, because there is a lot of okay, maybe there is some truth to the conspiracy theory, but usually the people that tells you the conspiracy theory can never back it up at all. They can never back it up with
Right.
saying, like, always blaming George Soros for everything, but they never prove it. They never prove it. They never show you any proof of his involvement. He's like this Doctor Evil character. For those that don't know, Doctor Evil is that the comedic super villain in the Austin Powers movies.
Right.
But I always heard so many times the right wing always blaming George Soros for everything. Everything major that happens is always George Soros's fault. Okay, and maybe
Yeah.
he might be involved in something, but damn it, show me some proof. You can't expect me to believe you just because you say it. That's the weak
Uh,
minded that does that.
Ramon, one thing we have to
Yeah,
understand that for the conservatives, George Soros is like the boogeyman. Okay,
Right. I've been hearing that for years.
you could have a flood here in Texas, and it's George Soros's fault. No, it's other factors. It's just easier to just to blame him for every conceivable whatever. A person can be born with a birth defect, and it's just George Soros's fault.
Yeah, you can
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
fiction
I
way too
mean,
much without proof. Yeah.
to me is this right now. I'm not defending or anything with George Soros, right? But the only thing that went up and sparked these rumors when quote unquote that he actually went up and gave um, a check for that fraudulent organization that calls itself Black Lives Matter. Now, the reason why I call it fraudulent is because the original Black Lives Matter, which a lot of people don't know, was actually an idea of a guy that wanted to do something for the community, but then he was found unalived. So, and nobody have solved this murder till this day. Now, with that saying, right? Then you have certain people that went up and took the mantle of Black Lives Matter, and they were actually talking about certain people like Tamir Rice and everything like that when they were actually going to the pop to the rallies and everything. Then you had certain people who was on Black Lives Matter that didn't really care about it. They just went up and they showed up. They didn't even deal with the people. They was not even really there for justice. They was only there just to show their face and make a muck and everything. So Black Lives Matter, they went up and they actually took flight when there was the George Floyd case. So so with that, and then everybody blaming George Soros for everything ever since he just gave the check to that organization, Black Lives Matter. You could say like, oh yeah, my car crashed. Blame it on George Soros for giving the people on faulty steel or something like that. I mean, I've heard a lot of whacked out theories, which to me doesn't really make any sense. I'm just keeping it G.
Well, it's
Okay.
kind of like what's her name, Jessica Gonzalez talking about. Well, if Puerto Rico is granted statehood, that will solve every problem. So basically, it's
Oh,
like
yeah, Jennifer
yeah, okay,
Gonzalez.
Jennifer. Okay, so basically, if you have an ingrown toenail, statehood for Puerto Rico is the solution.
I'm
If you
tired
have
of
an
that shit.
acne, Jennifer
It's very
Gonzalez,
tiresome.
statehood for Puerto Rico is the solution. If your wife is unfaithful, well, statehood for Puerto Rico will be the solution.
Yeah, yeah.
That,
Everything.
that, 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 that's like to me. That comparison doesn't have nothing to do with the price of beans. Let's be honest. Like, hey,
Yeah, yeah. But
like,
that one of the political parties that I was telling you about, the one that is always talking about statehood this, statehood that. They try to make it seem to the population on the island that all of the problems in the island will be solved if Puerto Rico becomes a state, which is never going to happen. There are more important things to more immediate or important things to worry about. Like, for example, the power grid needs to be fixed. There is a company in charge that is being overpaid and they're not doing shit because they are contractually, they're not even obligated to take care of problems quickly. And that's more of an immediate problem. The other thing is that all the defunding of the schools, and this was because of the whole promesa thing that happened during the Obama administration,
all
and
right,
local people locally can't make decisions about the local communities. It has to be done by outsiders. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what is it that they're legislating over. Statehood is not gonna solve it. I mean, it's not a magic wand. Just because you give statehood, then all of a sudden all of the problems go away. That's not how it goes. Things have to be worked out then, that and it has been stuck. The island is stuck with this artificial debt that has everything to do with the economic constraints of the Jones Act. That shit needs to be eliminated first. I mean, that's not going to
Right.
grant statehood to an island that is in debt. So
Right.
those issues, those problems have to be taken care of first. Make it possible for people to live there, avoid the gentrification, because of the tax haven uh, incentives that are on the island. Those things have to be taken care of first. So that the whole thing with the statehood, I hate it. I hate it because that's the only thing that Jennifer Gonzalez talks about. Now she's the one. She's the one running for governor for the PNP party, and hopefully she doesn't get in because it's gonna be shit. It's gonna be a disaster. And basically that's how I look at it. Again, the Victoria Ciudadana PIP candidate, I'll give him a chance. Hopefully he gets voted in and there is no fraud with the election and things like that. So with that said, I have to step down. I have to take care of something. But Armando, I
All
appreciate
right.
you letting me
All
be
right.
on your panel. And shout out to you, Jose. You always support me when I do live streams. We're gonna talk again soon. Shout out to the chat. I'm gonna be stepping out.
All right.
All
Take care
right.
of
So,
yourself, you guys.
All right.
and
Good night, Ramon.
remember, it's 53 days until the first day of winter.
Okay, we'll talk later.
Uh, that yo Jose.
Yeah.
What yo? You gotta go on and get a new stick, man. Because like I know you love winter and everything like that, but you just made that man go quick.
Well, I mean, it's 233 days until the first day of summer.
Right.
So anyway, but going back to the original topic. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that the Puerto Rican community has been disrespected, and unfortunately, it's not going to be the last time. And while I'm happy to see that the other Latinos are showing their solidarity to our community, I think if something's going on that's affecting, say, the Dominican community or the Cuban community or the Mexican community, our community needs to reciprocate and show our support for that community as well.
I'm gonna go in and tell you something. If Harim is in the chat, he could actually voice this with me. All right. 24 years ago, there was an unfortunate incident
Mm-hmm.
that happened in the Puerto Rican parade,
Okay.
and a lot of women were, in loose terms, violated
Yes.
by several individuals who actually are serving lengthy prison sentences because of it,
Okay.
or have served lengthy prison um, sentences. Now, I'm going to go and tell you something, which a lot of people, which is forgotten history. Yeah, sometimes Dominicans and Ricans, we don't see eye to eye in things. But one thing I have to give this, and a lot of people don't know this. You see, politicians in New York, after that incident, was talking about shutting down the Puerto Rican parade for good. And they were saying all the anti Puerto Rican stuff towards the Puerto Rican community.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing I could actually say that what us Dominicans did. We went up and we told those people in New York that wanted to shut down the Puerto Rican parade in New York. They was like, oh, so you want to go around and shut down the Puerto Rican parade? Okay, guess what? If you shut them down, you have to shut us down too. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to go around and make Puerto Rican scapegoats because of your hate and everything like that. You're going to go on and get us. We're going to go on and stand beside Puerto Rican brothers. So therefore, if you want to go and shut down the Puerto Rican parade, you better shut down the Dominican parade. And the Dominicans, we went up and we were in solidarity because of that. Another thing talking about Puerto Rican and Dominican solidarity was when it was 1998 when George hit the Dominican Republic. So when George hit the Dominican Republic, right,
Mm-hmm.
you had a lot of Puerto Ricans and Dominican entertainers side by side doing concerts, so at least Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic could get aid because Georgia affected Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. And another thing, which a lot of people do not actually talk about, in the music sense, Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, when it comes to music, we actually help out each other. And I'm gonna go around and say this. In 1962, the Cuban owner of the music industry or the music label at that time was like, okay, it was one of the singers got got caught up on a narcotics charge, so he could not make that. It was Ismael Rivera. So what they did though, they got the next best singer at that time to go and sing for the first album of El Gran Combo de Puerto Rico. So even through his life and everything, a lot of Puerto Ricans respected Jose Mateo just because of that first album.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there, that album, or the first album of Gran Combo de Puerto Rico, was Cuban influence, meaning Cuban business management. You had a whole Puerto Rican band. You got the legendary, you had the legendary Rafael Nadal, and then you had Jose Mateo. So therefore, when it came to music, not and people actually forget um, Johnny Pacheco also. So when it comes to Dominican and Puerto Rican solidarity, even though it's not actually hyped up, there's been a solid history when it comes to the United States of the Dominican community and the Puerto Rican community being in solidarity with each other. And it goes back to maybe, I'll say like 60 or 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing. Now, of course, there are differences within our respective communities, but then again, one thing we have to understand is that the history of our communities are different. Okay,
Hmm.
the Dominican Republic became an independent nation in the 19th century. We were
Yes.
never been an independent nation. We were a colony of Spain for 400 years. Then we became a colony of the United States, and we're still a colony of the United States. It's just that we're under a name of a so-called Commonwealth. So,
Yeah.
that's something. So, of course, we have never known what it is to be independent. Unlike the Dominican Republic, okay, and also the influence is a little different. That while there's certain things that are common, mainly Spanish, the other one is the Catholic influences that are both strong in both respective countries. And and of course, some people like to make light of the fact that Dominicans and Puerto Ricans don't get along. Is they, part of it has to do with they don't know each other. I mean, I've been to the Dominican Republic twice, and one thing I can say, in my two times that I've been there, I have been treated very well. Of course, I went there in a respectful manner, trying to blend as much as I can, to the country as much as possible, and I was treated very well. It's just unfortunate. What happens is when you have Americans that come visit, you know, different countries, they have different expectations, and then unfortunately they tend to show the narrative of the American, and expecting everything to function as it was in the United States, not knowing that everything's functioned differently. Okay,
Right.
I mean, and it's a different environment in the Dominican Republic. I mean, you have to you have to be mindful of that. Okay,
Hmm.
and what and one thing you have to be careful: do not say anything disparaging regarding the community. Dominicans are extremely proud of their culture, just as much as we are proud of our culture as well. So if you come to the Dominican Republic and you saying disparaging words, I mean, it's not gonna it's not gonna go well for anybody.
And then you're gonna have a free trip to the pokey. I've seen it happen.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and of course,
And
yeah, of
and
course,
talking to any of the Americans or passport bros, your money is not your money would not save you all the time in the Dominican Republic. So therefore, you better come to the country respectful and make sure that when you come respectful and everything like that, make sure that you don't have a free trip to the pokey. That's all I gotta say.
yeah. But you know what's the problem with some of the passport bros is that they go to these countries thinking that the women are easy and that for simply showing a couple of dollars that basically they're going to get unlimited access to the box. Okay, but,
Yo,
but
yeah,
I mean, but what they're going to find out is that just like in every community, they're very proud. So when you come in being disrespectful, it's not gonna go well for you. And
mm-mm.
I remember the first time I went to the Dominican Republic. That's when I met my ex-wife, and the fact of the matter is, no, she wanted us to smash right away, and it's like, no. First of all, I want to get to know you, okay, and you need to get to know me because unfortunately, you know, certain Americans have the reputation they go overseas just to get with women to smash. So I just wanted to get to know her, and she had a hard time understanding why I didn't want to smash right away. It's just that first of all, uh, I could have gone to certain areas and just get a hooker and just do it that way. My purpose was to try to get to know her and try to get to know her family, so they can see me and I can see them. They can ask me whatever questions, because of course they're gonna make sure that I'm the right type of person. So they got that. So they have to vet me just like I'm vetting her.
Right. I mean, in that aspect, it is respected. Like for example, I have cousins who are married to, well, two foreign citizens. I'm just gonna go around and say that of the, whether it be Europe or somewhere, but they're married.
Hmm.
So sometimes everybody everybody could quote the passport bros and everything, but yeah, we just have to out the passport sisters too. I mean, they're around. I mean, let's be honest. Some passport sisters are the ones that they are tired of, I guess, men in their country. And if they find a different experience, which is actually wholesome, I'm like, hey, do what you got to do. Now,
Hmm.
now going back to Caribbean lore and everything like that, I do know that in my times that I've been to different Caribbean places, which is St. John, St. Thomas, and the Bahamas, other than the Dominican Republic. I know that there's different laws and everything like that. Kind of like maybe similar architecture, but really not. But then for some reason, whenever I go to a Caribbean island, I just always have to drink coconut water because I know it tastes different, but I still
Yeah.
like that because it's good for your health.
Yeah. I mean, look, when I do go to the Dominican Republic to see my lady and to meet up with her family, they're gonna vet me, and it's only appropriate because they want to make sure I'm the right type of person for her. Okay, just like my siblings will ask questions regarding her because they're going to be vetting her because it's only natural. Okay, and of course, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Dominican culture, the approval of the mom is very important.
Mm, okay, it depends.
Okay.
It's not only the approval of the mother; it sometimes be the approval of the grandmother, the father, etc. Now, in my case, right, when I was in the days of dating my wife,
Hmm.
my my mother-in-law asked me, "What are your intentions with my daughter?" Now, I told her basically, "Hey, I want to marry your daughter," and for some reason, I knew that was real. And now look at me. I'm a married man for 3 years. So with that said, I'm in my case, it was the mother because sometimes a mother be like, okay, this, then, and the third, but then when they get to know you and when they see what type of person you are, they actually you actually grow a bond with your mother-in-law or with the mother of your girlfriend or fiance, and you actually have like a bond, and she'll actually treat you as a son just because they see how you respect their daughter. Now the father, now the father is way different. But I'm just saying, like as far as other family members and everything like that, I say if the father likes you, and it's not because of how much dinero you got, but if you get along with the father also, that could be actually a good plus when you actually have a relationship with a Dominican woman. And I've seen it happen that to the point that like, okay, I'm going to my father-in-law, and then you see the father-in-law, they actually hug out each other and everything like that. But then you have certain people, as you know, in all family stuff about, oh, I don't like my father-in-law and everything like that. I'm like, I don't want to. Me, I've heard stories like that within families and everything like that, and I never really understood that because at the end of the day, I actually think that it's supposed to be all respect. So therefore, if you respect your wife, respect their family, and vice versa, when the new life is actually being brought out, that child could actually have two support systems that could actually make it. I'm not going to say make it easy,
Hmm.
but at the same time, you could actually say like, okay, I got two sides that actually love and support me instead of all the internal bickering and everything.
Well, it seems like Clara's father is not in the picture for whatever reason. In fact, I have never heard her mention anything about him. So it's
Right.
basically so it's basically her mom. Now I have spoken with her mother briefly. She seems to be very receptive towards me.
All right.
So that's something. But of course, when I do meet her, I'm gonna be a little bit nervous because I want to make a good, I want to make a good impression, and you know, and technically, if we get to the point when I want to marry Clara, I'll have a discussion with her mom,
Right.
my intentions, and then ask if if it's okay. Now, of course, Clara's in the belief, well, we're both adults and that we can decide for ourselves, which is true. But
Yeah.
being that there's a possibility I will be part of her family. Dealing with my in-laws. It's
Right.
always it's always best to try to start things on the right foot.
Yeah. Well, in the case of my parents, right? I mean, it's funny. Now, both my mother and my dad were from the same place. Different sides, of course, but the
Hmm.
same place. So my mother and my father, they grew up knowing each other, but they wasn't, it was like they lived in two different sides of the same town.
Hmm.
So when they came to, so my mother first came to the United States, and then my dad came in 1972. They met in the party, and they recognized that they knew each other from the old times. And what my mother said that she liked about my father was that he was clean cut and strong. And the story that I got from my father was that he actually, well, we were just actually walking around the old town with Consuelo, of course. He
Hmm.
went up and he told me when they were like teenagers, he was like, I'm like right there when I was stood right here, Mario, was when I first fell in love with your mother.
Hmm.
So I'm looking like, Dad, you knew back then. I'm like, yeah, but then she went away and I was here. I was like, yeah, that's true. So fate fate could actually bring a lot of people to everything. And one thing I've actually said though, that that even though that sometimes I didn't really get to see my father's side of the family that much, I could actually say that whenever I go over there, they actually love and they support me, and they actually see what I'm doing and such,
Hmm.
and they're actually happy to see me. I mean, there's actually all love on that side.
Yeah.
Now on my mother's side, there was always love and everything like that because we always lived. I mean, in the United States, we actually lived close to each other, so it's like okay, bendición tía, bendición tío, and this, that, and the third. And then when I went to Santo Domingo, I'm like, okay, the aunts that were living at the time, like bendición tía and all that stuff. But on my mother's side, including my mother's family, they're dearly departed. But on my father's side, I still have relatives, and I still have like on both sides, I still have like a gang of cousins. So as far as as far as family and everything like that, it's great when families united, and even more so when people who actually have positive vibes marry each other. So that's one thing I could actually say.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure when the next time that Clark comes to New York and has an opportunity to meet with my siblings, of course they're gonna have some questions and things like that. I think she'll get along with my younger brother, my older sister. My youngest sister, I don't know, because
All right,
everyone is unique, and I'm just simply gonna leave it like that. Uh,
gotcha.
so, and of course, both my parents are deceased, so so basically they're gonna be like more like playing the role, making sure that um no one deceives me, no one takes advantage of me, the things of that nature.
I
And
mean, yes.
mhm,
I mean, when I actually first started my relationship with my wife, it was like it was like right after the passing of my mother. So the first people that actually got to meet my wife were actually my sister and I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, it was my sister, and then it was my cousins on my father's side, and then my late uncle also.
mhm,
So they got to meet my wife. Now after a while and everything like that, you know, as years goes by and everything like that, people ask how she's doing and everything. My wife, she was actually scared. Um, she was actually scared. Like, hey, I never met your pops before because my pops used to come back and forth from the Dominican Republic to New York. So I was like, yo, he's a cool dude. And so the first time that she met my father, I could actually say I never seen a happier man when he actually saw my lady. I mean, it was all hugs and it was like a big celebration. Some certain things that I never saw my pops did, but he went up and he went up and he saw my lady with open arms, and he was just straight happy. It was just it was a great day that day. So as my father was coming back and forth from DR, he had gotten sick and everything, and me and him used to actually talk every day on WhatsApp. And then on the last time that my wife actually saw my father, it was like we saw something that we just didn't know what happened, and then the news came, that phone call came. So all in all, you have certain people that look out for you, but at the same time, they want to make sure that okay, that you're good. So for young men that are actually thinking about marrying and everything, this is the only advice I could actually give you. When you marry your wife, you're not only marrying your wife, you actually have to hold yourself accountable to her family also.
mhm.
And sometimes that'll make you a better man.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that some people they don't think about. But and maybe if people thought about it that way, maybe there wouldn't be so many divorces. Um,
Thank you.
and the fact of the matter is, you have to vet the person very well, and that person has to vet you very well. Because
Exactly.
if not, you're going to have a lot of problems because there's going to be a lot of issues which were never addressed because you didn't properly vet each other.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, nowadays people are basing everything on superficial things like how they look, how much money they have, or they have a good shape or whatever, or they're good in the sack and what have you. But nothing regarding do they have common interests, do they have common goals, they have common expectations. I mean, that's the reason why you have so many divorces today.
Yeah, and you know what? I heard that one of the cause of divorces, and a lot of people don't see it. I've heard people divorce over petty reasons. Like for example, I've heard people divorce because their mates had a flatulence problem, and their flatulence was so strong that it destroyed the marriage. So so you know,
Well,
but
I mean,
then
yeah. Unfortunately, what happened is you have okay, and let me make this perfectly clear because I don't want to make it sound like an anti-female. But some of these modern women, I mean, they're very quick to get a divorce instead of trying to, work in whatever problem. Okay, you're never gonna find the perfect mate. And if you find the perfect mate, guess what? You're gonna spoil that with your attitude and your expectations. So
right,
whatever issue, whatever issue you try to resolve it, whether it be between you two or counseling or things of that nature. And if you two came out, then you go your separate ways, but try to be cordial with each other.
exactly.
But
And I have a
unfortunately,
Cardi B, but now I have
yeah,
a Cardi B or Offset situation.
yeah. Unfortunately, nowadays, certain women are so quick to end their marriage because they're not happy or it doesn't feel right or they think they can do better. I mean, the perfect example is Tia Mowry. Okay, uh, she never mentioned anything about her husband, ex-husband being unfaithful or being abusive, but she treated her daughters like it was a graduation, a celebration, whatever. And now she's having a hard time with the dating market because, you know, the so-called perfect guy does not exist. And if you find the perfect guy, guess what? You're going to spoil that person with your attitude and your outrageous expectations.
Yep.
I mean, the whole idea of trying to find a guy that's 6 feet tall, has a six pack, and makes a six-figure salary, while the average typical male makes about maybe 40 or 50,000 a year. And what they don't understand that those type of men, they have
I'm not
options.
gonna date you.
And
Yeah.
what's even observed is like some of these women, they're like 300, 400, 500 pounds. They have like 4 or 5 kids from 3 or 4 different baby daddies, and they act like they have no sense, and they expect to be a alpha man's pick when they can pick whoever they wish. I
Yeah.
remember one situation where Kendra G, she was interviewing this lady. Well, I'm gonna say lady because uh, I mean, she said she was 24 and she didn't dress, she didn't look right, and she was not exactly the most thin person in the planet. And she wanted a guy that was 6 feet tall, that had dreadlocks, and was making $1 million a year. So Kendra G thought that she was on drugs. No, that's what I expected. So what she did was she drew a stick figure and she showed it. It's like, well, you know what? This is the closest thing you're gonna find to a dude like that.
Mm, yeah.
But unfortunately, what happened is we have certain women that they don't have a realistic value of who they are in the dating market. I mean, but I'm sorry, but if you are a baby mama with 3 or 4 kids with 2 or 3 different baby daddies and you're 300 pounds or what have you, you're not gonna have you're not gonna have a line of quality men knocking at your door.
Or you just got to work on yourself.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's a man's fault. It's a man's fault that she opened up her legs and gave random men access to the box and things of that nature and decided to let the man hit it raw. So of course it's the man's fault, even though she was the one that granted access to the men.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like for example, you got some men that bring their problems with women, but I'm like, oh, let's put them at those. And I had to learn this the hard way. What
Mhm.
type of woman are you going to look for? Are you going to go look for a woman that you're going to have uh, a nice night with, and then you're going to regret like 5 years down the line or 25 years down the line? Let's be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Or you stay true to your values until you meet a woman that actually come to your values, and then y'all could go around and develop your relationship that way.
Hmm.
So certain people, I I actually thought that okay, I was bad at relationships until I actually met my wife. Now certain people they could actually say like, oh yeah, they did this to me, did that. I could have been one of them. But then when you actually look at self reflection and everything, you could actually be like, okay, yeah, I did those mistakes. I have to hold myself accountable. Yeah, I did not do certain things right. When you actually look back and you reflect on certain things, how can I be a better man? And you have to go on from there. Because let's be honest,
Hmm.
a lot of women in this time, in this day and time is not perfect, and a lot of men are not perfect. But if you actually work to improve yourself, you could actually be the better self of you, the best you that you could ever be.
Hmm. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that if you're a single mom that you can never find love. It's just that you have to be realistic. Okay. And that's what's part of the problem. I mean, you have women with 3 kids with 2 different babies with 3 different baby daddies, and they expect men to go gaga over them. I mean, it's one thing when when you're dating a single mom, but when you're dating a single mom with multiple children from multiple baby daddies, that means first of all dealing with the ish with the baby daddies, number one, and number two, um, the fact that you are providing care and what nurturing to a child that's not even yours, and then sometimes they're not even willing to give the man a child of their own, but yet they're supposed to do all this for a woman who acted in a non-traditional manner. They want a traditional male, but yet she's acting like a non-traditional female. That doesn't
Right.
work.
Mm-mm, it doesn't.
And there's a statistics that talks about that by 2030 a huge number of women are going to be old and single because they price
Yeah.
themselves out of the dating market with their outrageous expectations.
I mean, but then if you really look at it, you might have a lot of men who are old and single also because of, you know, maybe because some of them are incels and some of them decided to listen to the bad dating advice from agitate. So That's
Well,
all I say.
I mean, unfortunately, you have certain males that created a bunch of broken homes because basically, once the woman becomes pregnant, basically they became MIA, which means
Mhm.
then the women have the responsibility of being the mother and father to the child alone. Now there have been some
Right.
moms that done an excellent job raising their children, but I mean, quite a few of them have done a piss poor job, and you can see it in the men today. I mean, a lot of the men have grown up without a positive male role model image. So what happened is you have like emotional men, or you have men that's been incarcerated.
Yeah.
But then again, we're living in a day and age where you have women that encourage women to rack up their body count, you know, enjoy life and have ride the CCs as much as they can on their 20s and wait until their 30s and 40s when they finally decide to look for someone. When a lot of the guys that they were looking for, guess what? They're either married or they've been permanently placed in the friend zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are the same women that complain, where are the good men? Well, try looking into the friend zone. How many, I mean,
Yeah.
how many of these so-called men have been put in the friend zone because they're too boring, they're too responsible, they're too this or whatever. They want to save for the future. They don't want, I mean, really,
Yeah. Pretty much.
yeah. I
Well,
mean,
I'm about to wrap this up on Don Jose.
well, first of all, thank you very much for allowing me on your platform. And look, I mean, Latinos are allowed to vote whomever they wish. But I really do wish they take into account whenever anyone that's being disrespectful of your culture, whether it be Democrat or Republican. Okay.
Right.
And if you decide to vote with them, even though the person's been disrespected towards you, towards your culture, that does not speak well. Okay.
Exactly.
That's us cries of desperation. And all I've been and what I've been saying since day one, try to vet the candidates that you want to support, and then if you're able to, support them after going through the vetting process, fine. But a lot of people are not even doing that today. They're basing
Right.
everything on party affiliation or as a false image. So with that being
Right.
said, I just want to say good night, thank you, and good night to those who are in the chat and in the clouds. So take care.
Yep.
Take care.
Mhm. Well, that is all, folks. So coming my next live stream tomorrow, where we're actually working on something big for all my martial artists. Peace.